We're live. Hello. Sorry about that. Problems with the internet. That's BT for you. So I blame BT or the fact that I didn't reboot the router this evening just before we went live, which seems to fix these problems. Okay, I need to go onto the site and let people know that there's a new YouTube video for this stream. So who wants to take it away while I do that?
Okay, well, somebody asked a question about rapid charging. We've got a question about taking delivery of a car as well at the moment. So perhaps if I can answer the ones about taking delivery of a car during lockdown.
Sounds good. Yeah, that's a really good idea.
So obviously at the moment, we're in a national lockdown in the UK, and this means that showrooms are not allowed to open to the public. We have all our service departments open, so MOT and servicing work can still continue as an important service that carries on. That's decided that that's a definite need. But car sales showrooms are closed to public, and you are not allowed to test drive a vehicle. You're not allowed to come in and sit in the vehicles. You're not allowed to come into the showroom. However, click and collect click and collect services and delivery services, where a car is fully paid for prior to handover, are allowed to continue. So what that means is obviously if you get a car on finance, that the finance company fully pays for it before you take delivery. So it doesn't mean you have to be a cash buyer only, but yeah, basically as long as the car's agreed, sold, and you can basically buy it as if you were buying a sofa from DFS or whatever else. You just click and collect, and it's either you can come and pick the car up from yourself from the garage. They will be outside. They won't be outside. You won't be allowed into the showroom. So it'll be a quick handover outside. Basically, the car will be fully sanitized. They will probably have the documentation in a sealed plastic wallet. The keys, and I think basically the only thing that will be handed over is some keys. Again, we hand those over in a plastic bag usually, or with gloves if it's not a keyless entry one. And all the touch points should have been wiped down and sanitized as well. We've actually got some ozone sanitizer kits as well, so we can put this machine in which generates it releases ozone inside the vehicle, which sanitizes the air inside as well. So in a case where we've been driving, I've done a couple of delivery handovers like that, where I've drove up to Cumbria, for example, to deliver a ZSEV, and we put this what's it called now? This sanitation device inside the car. Plug it in, and it runs for about 20 minutes or so, and sanitize the interior of the vehicle. In addition to obviously me wearing a mask whilst I'm driving and wearing gloves also. So we try and do things as safely as we possibly can. Tomorrow I've got a handover. My MG5 that I got just before Christmas has now been sold. Somebody's taking delivery of that tomorrow to replace their Nissan Leaf. So tomorrow morning I'm delivering that MG5 to them and then taking their Leaf in part exchange. So obviously I'll be, again, all gloved up and masked up, and I'll go with some sanitation wipes and some antibacterial wipes and wipe down the interior and so on whilst that's occurring. And then for the handover and talking through the vehicle controls, obviously normally in a normal handover, the customer would sit in the driver's seat, the salesperson would sit in the passenger seat and talk you through all the controls. We can't do that now. So instead what we're going to do is call the customer on a mobile phone, and they can sit in the car and I can stand outside the vehicle a suitable distance away and talk through all the controls remotely. So hopefully I remember where everything is. But that's the way we're sort of getting around that feature. I saw there was a thing on the news recently about somebody who'd been prosecuted for buying a car privately and driving it back. They'd driven from, I think, Bradford to Manchester to pick up a VW Golf from a private individual, bought the car, and then driving back, and they got stopped by the police and got fined because they deemed it as non-essential service, non-essential journey, and it's only businesses that were allowed to operate click and collect, not private individuals. So that's one benefit of well, for us as a dealership group, obviously, is that we're able to offer these services. And so it's down in the main part to the fact that we have got robust COVID measures in place, that we are taking the utmost care when we're obviously sanitising the vehicle before handover, and that when if we are driving the vehicle ourselves, then we're going to be making sure that it's all done with gloves, mask, and wiped down afterwards as well, all touch points. So, which I suppose if you're buying a 10-year-old VW Golf out of the pre-ads, it's probably not going to have the same level of disinfection. It's tough for us at the moment. We don't know how long all this is going to last. I mean, the review point is set as, I think, 15th of February. Although the expectation, I think, within the industry is that it could go on, towards Easter, given the current level of COVID infections in the country. So we're geared up to try and do as much as we can remotely. Obviously, some people have never bought a car without a test drive. Some people, if they're company car owners, never test drive any vehicles. They just get given what they're given. And so that, a lot of people who buy lease cars, for example, get contract hires and things, they don't ever really test drive the car. They're just looking at a monthly payment, think that's affordable, and they go out and they say that looks nice, that'll fit the bill, and they go for it. We can do remote test drives. We've got we can do walk around videos. We can do see it now videos from inside the car, outside the car, showing you all the features and things. Obviously, we've previously done YouTube videos, reviews of the cars, so those are all still live for people to look at, which is a really good feature. But overall, we're doing the best we can to try and keep the wheels turning, try and keep people in employment also, because it's a tough time for all industries.
Do you think it's going to be okay by Easter?
I don't know. It depends how many people continue to get infected and pass it on and everything else. I'm hopeful that by Easter, which I think is around the 7th or 8th of April, that we might be at least loosening the shackles slightly. But at the same time, I don't think an eat out to help out deal in April should be on the cards, really.
No, I'm afraid I'm pretty pessimistic when it comes to stuff like this. Thanks, Miles. I just want to say at this point, so the new stream health is excellent, and I've updated a notice on the site to let people know that the stream is live, and also I'll put a note in the description for the first part 1, and I've also embedded part 2 into the original thread. So there's various ways that people can find it live, and yes, and they'll get notifications as well if they've subscribed. So apologies, it's the internet and computers. Okay, so well, at least your wheels are still turning, Miles, so to speak.
Yeah, no, definitely, and I say it's a good time. In a way, it gives. It's a terrible time for the UK economy. It's a terrible time for everyone like that. But it's good in the sense for us in that we're able to still keep open. There's plenty of businesses out there which can't, sadly. We are still trying to make sure that our customers are helped, and obviously, it perhaps opens the door to more things like this sort of video conferencing type thing that we can still communicate with our customers and with potential customers and everything else. It's a way that we're able to keep the lines of communication open. And I think that dealerships we'd already gone quite a lot digital over the last sort of 5-6 years. We went, we set a process up about 2 years ago where you could click and collect your car online on our website straight away. So about 2 years ago, we had a full web shop with every car advertised. Every car has finance. You can do a finance application online. You could on all used cars. You can physically go online. Never have to go into a dealership at all. You can buy a car, and you can get it delivered to your house. And that's something we set up a couple of years ago. So for us, we were sort of ahead of the curve in that respect in terms of getting that process gone. It's obviously been a massive help for us now that we've been able. It's given us a real head start against some of our competitors in this market that we've got that in place, because there's plenty of smaller dealership groups or smaller dealerships that are not able to offer those features because they don't have the website, the web presence. And believe me, it costs an awful lot of money to set up, and an awful lot of, I think it took us about a year to get the website from conception to actually working. And so obviously if you're trying to sort of start that in lockdown, it's not going to be the best time for you. Fortunately, we'd had it done 2 years in advance.
I think this applies to all businesses, Miles, that
totally agree.
that if they've been able, had the opportunity, the resources to set up a website where people could buy online, just down to restaurants as well, they're going to be able to continue to a lesser but significant degree where there's other people are not going to be so lucky.
Yeah.
So, okay, how is everybody? Because I'm just calming down now after running up and down stairs to get to the router.
Quite chilled.
Yeah, thank you, Miles.
There's one question in the chat.
Yeah.
How long should the battery balance take? Mine shows 457 volts, but it took 2 hours to balance.
If it's not been done regularly, so for example, if you've done several rapid charges or several partial charges, and then you do a full charge with a balance, it can sometimes take, sort of an hour, 2 hours maybe. But on the whole, normally it would be about an hour. If you were doing it daily, it should be down to about half an hour to an hour, I'd have thought.
So Roger's battery sounds like is perfectly fine, but may have taken a little bit longer.
Yeah, it might just be taking a little bit. To be fair, it does take slightly longer in cold weather anyway, because the battery cells, again, don't respond quite as quickly as they do when they're at 20 degrees. So if it's a particularly cold weather, the internal resistance changes. That can affect how the shunts happen as well.
Okay. We've got no more questions. I'm not sure how much.
There was a question on the forum asking about rapid charging, and they said on rapid charging, having managed only to achieve 24 kilowatts using BP pulse and NG chargers.
Yeah, that's from WAC768, right?
Yeah, over the past week. Is it expected the revised BMS update will address this issue? I don't know. There's been a number of it, as we were talking about earlier. There's been some issues with other chargers. So I think it's whilst we were off stream. David was saying that there were some chargers up in Scotland which were eVolt units which had been installed about 8 years ago, when the Scottish government decided that they wanted to go mad and install loads of rapid chargers for cars that didn't exist. And here they are now leading the way. But these chargers that they put in perhaps haven't had the latest version of software, and in some cases they've just been left next to the coast in 8 years of Scottish weather, which isn't going to do anyone any good. So they've perhaps not been as reliable as some others. And so certain chargers have issues, which are particularly old chargers, may have issues with brand new cars like the MG ZS. So there have been different versions of, as Mike Fisher was saying before, there have been different versions of CCS protocol, which the MG uses the latest version, and that could cause some problems with some older handshaking on older devices. So in terms of BP pulse or NG only getting 24 kilowatt charge rate, there's a number of variables that could affect the charge rate you get. One of them is the temperature. So if the cell temperature is low, that can cause an issue. As we said before, the battery heater update may cure that in a select number of, if those parameters are met, then perhaps that could help slightly. If the cell temperature is brought up closer to 25 degrees, then the rapid charging rate should be faster. However, the enabling protocol for that is, as you see, quite restrictive. So it wouldn't necessarily, if your battery's at 11 or 11 degrees instead of 10, you might still not get a great charge rate. Having said that, if you were to do a charge let's say you started the charger, I don't know, 20%. The battery's warned you that the battery's low. You've got 35, 40 miles left, and you pull into a rapid charger, and it might start at 24 kilowatts, but then it might improve slightly as the battery warms up. Or alternatively, sometimes if you were to, I don't know, run it for say 10 minutes, and the battery goes from, let's say 20% to, I don't know, 35, 40%, there's a chance that disconnecting, turning the car off, turn it on, turn it off, and then reconnecting the charger could enable the charger to see that the battery cell temperature is increased, and therefore it's able to accept a higher charge rate, and therefore it would charge a bit faster as well. So as I saw this when I was testing the battery rapid charge speed using Alpha Power last year, I got a charge rate of around 45 kilowatts, then took the car for a 70 mile an hour-ish blast up the A1 and back. Came back with a really low battery percentage. I think I was down to about 8% on the battery. But the battery had warmed up whilst it was rapid charging the first time, and then it warmed up whilst I was thrashing it. And then it meant that I got 78 to, I think 79 kilowatts I got. I didn't quite get to 80. I think I seem to remember I got 79.8 kilowatts charge rate. And that was, as I say, from a low state of charge. So it's, batteries do respond better when they're warmer. We can't do much about the outside weather. Certainly, if you had a choice between doing a rapid charge last thing in the day after you've been driving for 100 miles, or first thing in the day after you've driven 100 miles the night before, left it to cool down all night, and then plugged in, you'll probably see a difference on the charging times, charging speeds then. Because if the battery's cooled down overnight and it's dropped even cooler, you may well see that your battery charge rate is a lot lower. So I'd always recommend that you try and if you go into rapid charge, don't leave it till the next morning, do it that night, or the end of the day, whatever. And again, don't attempt to go to a rapid charger first thing in the morning is probably the best idea as well.
Can I also add that the state of charge also makes a huge difference. If you're trying to do a rapid charge at a high state of charge, you'll get quite a low value, whereas you're more likely to get a higher higher rate of charge at a much lower state of charge, preferably under 20%.
Yeah, basically when the car warns you it's got a low battery, it comes on about, I think, about 25%. If you basically ignore that completely and keep driving until it's flashing at you and warning you and it's about to, and you think you're going to run out, that's the optimum time to charge. When I was testing the charge rate on the MG5, I saw it was quite definite. As soon as it got to a different, basically, I started charging below 20%, and it was charging about 80 kilowatts on the MG5 on my Ionity charger. And then when it got to 40%, it dropped to 60 kilowatts. And when it got to 60%, it dropped to 40 kilowatts. And when it got to 80%, it dropped to 22 kilowatts. And when it got to 90%, it dropped down to about 10 kilowatts. So it is fairly stepped like that. So if you can, obviously, if you're connecting at 60% and it's only going to max out at 40 kilowatts anyway on the MG5, even if you connect to a 150 kilowatt Ionity charger like I was. Whereas if you'd started the charge at, say, 18%, 20%, potentially you might have got 80 kilowatt charge rate straight away. And that then would warm the battery up even more, which then means that it's definitely warm by the end of it for getting a faster charge rate later. So,
Miles, please don't tell me you were charging on a rapid charge over 80%, because that really annoys me.
It was because it was for the purpose of science, and as a Scotsman, Dave, I'm sure you'll appreciate the fact that the Ionity charge was on free vend, and there was 6 bays, and there was only me using one. So yeah, if everybody else had come, I'd have shifted out of the way. But as it was in the interest of science and satisfying my need as a Yorkshireman to get as much free stuff as I possibly can, then I stayed on there till 95%.
We should have a discussion about etiquette for rapid charging.
Definitely.
So I did about 180 miles today and rapid charged twice, and the second time a guy turned up in a i3. That's BMW, so the i3, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
BMW.
And he parked next to me, and I knew I only needed a few more miles in, so I just went out the window to let him know that I'd just be 10 minutes. That's fine. If you know, but yeah, if there's nobody there, charge it up as much as you like, especially if it's free.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
in West Yorkshire, there's quite a lot of NG chargers which are free vend. There's a couple in Keighley actually near us, which my wife was using this weekend. She's a district nurse, so she was using those rapid chargers in her electric car on a lunch break because she had to sit in the car. They're not allowed to go into the office to canteen to eat anymore. They've got to sort of sit in the car anyway. So I might as well sit on a charger. So she was sat on the AC side of the charger, which means that the CCS is still available for other people to use if they need to. Yeah, it's just she was charging for free, and she thought she might as well use a bit of the heat. It allows her to keep the heater running and keep the car warm and everything while she's charging. So while she's eating her lunch.
Yeah, Stuart, I'm going to turn it into a national campaign.
Okay. Well, yeah, for the best story I've got. Did I already say this when I was went in first thing in the morning to charge up at a hotel, and there was it was an iPace, and and I looked at it was a Polar charger at the time, which shows you how long it's been plugged in, and it had been plugged in for 10 hours and 45 minutes.
Ouch.
On a rapid charger.
On a rapid charger, yeah. And it said something like 98% full or something like that still. So I went into reception and waited for them to wake the guy up and get him to come down. And I was sitting in the car next to it, and he didn't even have the decency to say, "Oh, sorry for being a complete dick." And I just hope he got hit with the
Was it £10 or £15
per hour? Yeah,
£10 over it. £10 an hour, isn't it, or something?
He was obviously a noob and thought, I'll just plug it in and go to bed.
Yeah, well, it's the thing as well is hotels. Whilst it's great for hotels to have rapid chargers, it'd be even better if they had a bank of slow chargers. Not many people go to a hotel and are there for an hour. There will be the odd, meeting, conference, whatever that goes on, perhaps that would be applicable. But for most people, if they're going to the hotel room, they're going to get in there at, say, 6, 7 o'clock at night. They're going to go to the bar. They're going to have a couple of beers, maybe with their evening meal. They're not going to want to go out to the car. They shouldn't go out to the car. And they're going to leave it till morning. And I think that, it would be handy to have a bank of slow chargers. I think people will still be very willing to pay for a slow charger at a hotel. I mean, the number of times I've stayed somewhere and thought it would really make my job a lot easier if I could just get to the hotel, plug in and unwind and forget about it, rather than have to think, right, I've got to look in the local area. Right, there's a rapid charger in this multi-story car park. The multi-story car park closes at 11 o'clock. Right, well, I'll go at 8 o'clock in the morning then, so I can go,
The problem with that is that you'd need to have, I don't know, how many would you need to have rather than one rapid? You'd need, I think
going forwards, they're going to have to do it. It's like we're looking at
what we've
got to do for
space.
Yeah, so for dealerships, traditionally Nissan dealerships, for example, had a rapid charger if you're lucky, or they'd have a 7 kilowatt charger, just one for the whole site. And when you were selling 3 Nissan Leaf a month back in 2014 or whatever it was a busy month, then it didn't matter really. You had a demonstrator that'd sit on there. You wouldn't. Nobody drove it home as their demo because they weren't sure they'd get back in the morning because they didn't have chargers at home either. So the demonstrators didn't do much mileage, and the handovers were charged up, and it was gone. It was fine. And now we look at the situation we are with MG. I think I mentioned this stat last time when I called. 82% of our cars sold in the last quarter of 2020 were electric for MG. I think it was over 100 EVs we sold. So
is that you as a group, or is that your group, the Chorley Group? Or
that's Chorley Group, yeah. So Chorley Group, we've got 2 MG dealerships, and out of that, 82% of our sales were electric or plug-in. So there's a plug-in HS, isn't there, as well? So
yeah,
and as well as the MG5 and the MG8 ZS EV. And so we have, perhaps 3 or 4 MG ZSs or MG5s being delivered and handed over to customers in a day. We also have 2 demonstrators which need charging potentially during the day, or 3. We've got an MG5 demonstrator, an MG ZS EV demonstrator, and a HS plug-in hybrid demonstrator. And we've got a couple of Nissan Leafs as demonstrators, and we've got a couple of Nissan Leafs as courtesy cars for service, and we've got an MG5 for service as a courtesy car as well. So overall, we've probably got ourselves, just with cars that are frequently on board, we've got 8 to 10 cars that might need charging throughout the day, and they might all not need a rapid charge. No, some of the cars are left on site overnight. The courtesy cars, for example, they tend to come back at about 5:30, and they can sit in the in the compound overnight, so they don't need charging at the same time necessarily as the other cars. But one charger or one socket isn't really going to cut it, and we've got to look into now potentially putting in sort of like a load managed solution where we've got perhaps a bank of 10 to 20 7 kilowatt or 22 kilowatt chargers, which are load managed, so that if we plug in 20 cars into these 20 chargers, they don't necessarily all start at 7 kilowatts, but certainly as one finishes charging, then it can switch the power from that to the other chargers, or if there's only 3 cars plugged in, they can all charge at full rate or whatever it is, so there will be a vast amount of expense incurred by dealerships to try and keep with the times and try and keep this forward.
Yeah.
And I know Nissan back in the day used to offer free rapid charging for customers at their dealerships, which was great when there weren't that many chargers around and there weren't that many electric car drivers around. But as I've just said, having one charger which is trying to do, perhaps charge 6 or 7 of your own cars during the day, which will, on a rapid charger even will take, say, 40 minutes or so. That's your full day gone of all your hours without, customers wanting to boot you off so that they can charge their car. But nowadays, that's why Nissan's changed their policy on that, because nowadays there's so many other rapid chargers around that
I need to.
Does a
you
dealer
don't
need a
need to go to a
rapid?
Nissan dealership. Sorry?
Does a dealer need a rapid?
I don't know if the dealer needs a rapid charger particularly. We have, for MG in Burnley and in Chorley, we have 2 7 kilowatt chargers in the car park, and we have a further charger inside the workshop as well. So what we tend to do is, if a car's PDI'd, it's put on charge whilst it's PDI'd or overnight after it's been PDI'd. So all cars, when they arrive on site, are then charged for that purpose, which might take 7 hours or so, but that's okay because they can do it overnight. If a car's going for handover, then it's generally charged the night before. The only issue we've got really is, say, if a customer brings back a car after, if they bought it for a morning and they happen to drive a long way and then come back and they've got low charge, then we're maybe struggling to be able to get it ready for someone to take home that evening if need to. But the problem with rapid chargers are they're so damn expensive to install. We're looking sort of. I think the last rapid charger we installed at a site cost us £30,000 for the charge, and it cost us another £15,000 to upgrade the electric supply to cope with it. So you're looking at sort of £40,000 of investment for one rapid charger that can charge one car at once. Whereas if you put £40,000 into 20 bollards that can each charge 2 cars, then potentially the money goes a lot further. You can do a lot more charging. Might be more groundwork involved, obviously a lot more cable running and things, but so that's what we're sort of looking forward to as future. So I know that we've got a new site that's under construction in Chorley for a new dealership for MG, and we're looking at putting in I think we're looking at putting in 1 charger per bay in the workshop, so that we've got potentially 7 or 8 cars can be charged inside the workshop overnight. A couple in the valeting bays, so that if a car's on charge, it can be on charge whilst it's being polished. And also then I think we're looking at 6 in the car park, in the sort of customer car park as well.
Are they going to be open to the public at all?
They're going to be not open to the public, as in they're going to be able to be used for customers' cars when they're in for service or they're for handover. they're not going to be open to the public in terms of, somebody comes up in a corner and plugs in. It's not going to be that, because it's not going to be on a network. It's going to be paid for by us. It's going to be our electric, and we're going to need to use them for our own cars, for our own vehicles.
I guess they're going to need to be a lot more chargers, just full stop. But for dealers, it's a little bit more pressing, I guess, if you're doing good business, and if you're doing
and for all fleets, if you've got a fleet of electric taxis, you want to be relying on your own chargers. You don't want to be relying on going to the Instavolt at booths and seeing if there's one free there. You want to make sure that you've got your own chargers, so that so you don't have people hogging them. For example, you don't have somebody in an iPace that leaves it for 10 hours. You want to, if you've got your electric taxi business, you want to make sure that you can charge your car when you need to.
Yeah.
But going back to hotels and venues, that type of parking, I sometimes wonder why they don't just put in a 3-pin socket so you could use a granny charge or whatever, which would be really easy to fit alongside the chargers. But sometimes you see somebody's plugged into the fast charger, somebody's on the rapid charger, and you've got no out.
Well, the granny charger will have to be outside.
The 3-pins are very, very cheap, but they're also not the most robust under public use. I think that to go for, as a Type 2 socket, the costs aren't, the costs aren't astronomical. If you're looking at perhaps one of those sort of, bollard type charges that you might see outside an Asda or whatever, those, that charge 2 cars at once, you're looking at an installed cost of about £2,000, £2,500 per bollard. Obviously, depending on where the electricity is being run from. But if you assume that you've got electricity to that point, it's about £2,000, £2,500 for one of those, which is an investment, but it's not an unreasonable investment, I don't think.
I think it makes a difference, though, if people are choosing which supermarket to go to, and they don't care whether it's Sainsbury's or Asda or Tesco's or Morrison's, and there are some 7 kilowatt chargers out there, and they're going to go in there for an hour, and they're just going to top it up a little bit, then I think that for me that'd make a difference. I'd choose which supermarket to go to based on that, or whether they've got an offer on coffee.
Yeah, and Dave, a granny charger, it will only charge the car probably about 5 to 6 miles in an hour, whereas a fast charger will add about 25 miles in an hour. Big difference.
I've been in the position where I would have been grateful of a granny charge. Stranded in Helmsdale, thinking, how the hell do I get anywhere now?
It's better than
I've once run an extension cable out of a transport cafe window. I was delivering a Nissan Leaf up to Edinburgh once, and just missed the turn off on the motorway, and ended up just driving along, going, "Oh my god, I can see! I know the charger's over that hill, but I've got to go over that hill." And the car's flashing at me, saying, "No, no, no!" A transport cafe, and I had electric. Put on the granny charger for an hour. Gave me enough to just get over that hill to the rapid. That's the worst I've ever had, I think. Sometimes it does happen. But again, if that transport cafe had a 7 kilowatt charger, I'd have been a lot more grateful, because it would have given me, say, 20 miles, whatever, in that hour. I think also you've got to talk about, batteries getting bigger, and for example, the iPace having a 90 kilowatt hour battery, Tesla's having 100 kilowatt hour battery. 100 kilowatt battery on a 3-pin plug would take about 2 days to charge.
Yeah.
From flat to full.
Yeah.
And various of the manufacturers, NIO's just announced this weekend that they're doing a 150 kilowatt hour battery pack, which is great in terms of you can do 400 or 500 miles on a charge. Less so if you don't have a rapid charger to get some charge back in there fairly quickly. So
4 days to charge that on the grid.
Yeah, exactly. So
we should talk about the Aptera, which gives you a choice of something like 250 miles, 400 miles, 600 miles, or 1,000 miles battery. Heard of the Aptera?
The solar car.
It's got some solar panels on it, but the main point is it's a 3-wheeler, and it's got a 0.16 drag coefficient, something
CV?
like that. Yeah.
Wow.
But anyway,
it looks very good, but I unfortunately have children.
Practical.
I mean, I'm very fortunate to have children, but Yeah, I think a little three-wheeler wouldn't do me so good most of the time.
Digressing. Anyway, okay, Michael, do you fancy doing
Yeah,
something?
there's an interesting question. This one's more for Mike Proctor.
All right.
Charging the car while no, heating the car while charging. Is it possible? And if not, can you do it via OVSM instead as an option? I know you can do it using rapid chargers, but not. Can you do it with the 7 kilowatt or Granny?
I haven't successfully done it without running the 12-volt battery down in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
And the way I did do a video on it right at the beginning. I was due to go to hospital for my first cancer appointment, and I flattened the battery, so I had to get the bus. And basically what I did was I turned the car on, shut the driver's door with the window down. I leant in, locked the car using the internal lock, and then up to the window. And then I couldn't get back into the car. And the heating went off after about 10 minutes, because I don't want to leave my car on the drive. As you can see from my photo in the background, the back of the car is on the edge of the pavement, so it's not somewhere safe where you can just leave the car with it all unlocked and running, because it won't be there when you come back. So and then I tried using the emergency key, and I didn't operate it correctly. It took me a while to work out that there was a little flap on the end of the key. Yeah. And if you don't pull that out, the key doesn't go in far enough. And therefore I was thinking, why doesn't this key work? And then eventually I discovered that it comes out, and then the key goes all the way in, and then and you've got a little bit of purchase to open it. And of course you've got to pop the corner off. Oh, where? Sorry, yeah. I can't point on my screen of the photo, but yeah, you've got to get to the key. Yeah, you've got to pop the little cover off beside the driver's door handle. OVMS doesn't do it yet. They're still trying to reverse engineer the car. I think it's still quite some time before they'll be able to do that. They are working with a guy in Thailand, but we're not convinced that actually will work. We think that the software is different for the Thai cars, last time I heard. So I don't think you can successfully heat the car on a 7 kilowatt.
Mike,
basically.
Mike, how have you tried your new tyres yet to see how they are? Obviously, you can see them in the photo there.
Yes, I have, and they're great. They're just ordinary winter Dunlop Winter Sport 5 tyres, so they're the latest style. I'm using VAG Group 5 by 112 by 57.1 bore wheels. I'm just waiting for a new set of wheel bolts to arrive, because they're actually concave as opposed to the convex ones that are fitted on the MG, and also some wheel trims. And I had the TPMS sensors fitted today, but I've now got to put the car into an MG dealer to have them programmed. So at the moment, I've got a TPMS fault.
Right, okay. But you, in terms of handling, comfort, anything, obviously, can you feel any difference between the 16s and 17s?
I think it's a bit more comfortable because I've got a lot bigger sidewall. They're slightly thinner tyres, but it was 8 degrees today where I was, so they're not
it's
really.
It's supposed to be a cold snap again. I think there's supposed to be a cold snap tomorrow or Thursday, I think. So
yeah,
Wednesday, Thursday is supposed to be a bit cooler.
Yeah, so I'll more than likely be working again, so I'll be out on the road, so I'll have more of an idea what it's like as the week progresses.
Mike, if we get any snow or anything and you get the opportunity to take a video, whether it goes on your YouTube or not, we can show that in the
Yeah.
in the area over there, and you can narrate it. Give us a private narration if you like, just to let us know how you get on with your tyres.
Yeah, no problem at all.
Great. We're running over a little bit because obviously,
are.
sorry about the break in the middle. We on the running order, we've also got like discussing about preparing for delivery. Shall we do that next time? I guess we'll have to, won't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll do that
I think
next time.
so.
I think.
Yeah.
Any
Yeah.
other sort of questions or comments, Michael?
Just a quick one. What experience with charging companies do you recommend and price for charging EVs? I'm just going to answer it in one word: Intervolt, 35 pence. They seem to work.
And reliable.
Yeah, yeah. I'd say I've used with MG. I've used Ionity. I've used Alpha Power. I've used Polar. I've used all of them really, but Instavolt work fairly seamlessly usually. All of them work. All of them can work. You can get issues with any of them. To be fair, I know that some people had issues with Instavolt in the past. No, James Coates had an issue with an Instavolt charge when he took the MG5. But on the whole, Instavolt are very reliable. The best rapid charging network. I've got a wallet specifically with RFID cards in. So I got a Octopus were handing out the little cork RFID blocking wallet. So I've got one of them stuffed full with all of my charge cards, and I've got a raft of apps on my phone as well. Yeah, I've got a raft of apps on my phone as well, because I think it's good to be prepared. And let's say, best laid plans and all that, but if you get to a charger and somebody's vandalized it or driven into it or parked a skip in front of it or whatever else can happen in the world, or you get to a hotel to go use the rapid charger and because of COVID it's closed, then it's always good to be able to look on ZapMap or whatever and see, or PlugShare, and see where there's a charge nearby and go, oh great, I've got a card for that, or it'll accept, I know I've got an app for that, whatever it is. I've got a Polar subscription. I still pay this Polar subscription just because at the moment I trust the RFID card more than I trust the app. So I pay £7.85 a month, and I have done for the last year. I don't think I've even used them this last year at all. But I know that the day I cancel my subscription, the next day is when I'm going to need to use the RFID card, and the app won't work. So at the moment I'm paying a tax just purely on the off chance. It's because it's the whole point of insurance, isn't it? You pay money and that's it.
Better to have it and not need it.
Yeah.
But I used Polar today. I quite like Polar. They've put them in some quite reasonable, convenient locations, especially along the M40. So yeah, I like Polar. Mike, just briefly, Mike. Go on, Mike. Sorry.
I'll say I've used Ionity this week, and Shell, and Ecotricity, and they all worked.
Ecotricity worked?
Yep.
I don't believe that.
Red letter day, in the diary.
And it wasn't on free vend either, and nor was Ionity. Need a mortgage for that one.
Okay.
You were going to ask somebody a question.
Well, people have been talking about using Octopus for their home supply, and and the Octopus seems to be a favourite at the moment with EV owners. Is that right?
Yeah, well, they've got a couple of tariffs which work quite well. I'm an Octopus Agile, which has not been as cost effective over the last couple of weeks as it was previously. A couple of things that have conspired against us. It turns out that Brexit actually put our bills up on electricity. So when we left the EU, we jumped out of the EU energy trading scheme. So previously we were part of like a big link, and we still do take power from France and whatever else if we need it. But previously we were bidding across the whole Europe for power, and we were getting quite reasonable rates because of competition. But now we're sort of trading on our own against Europe. We're getting some quite expensive electricity prices. So I think my peak today was 35 pence per kilowatt hour between like 4 or 5, 6 o'clock. And the rest of the day it sort of sat around 11, 12 pence per kilowatt hour, whereas previously, before Christmas, I was sort of seeing it dropping down to sort of 6, 5p overnight usually. And then during the day it was perhaps up around sort of 9 or 10p. Well, now it's sort of pretty much 11p. Even overnight it dropped down last night, I think, to 8.68 was about as low as it got for about a half-hour period. Whereas if people go on a more traditional off-peak tariff like Octopus Go, or Michael, was it you saying about go faster?
Yeah, I've just I went and emailed someone, and I'm moving on to Go Faster, which is 5 hours at a prescribed time slot, and they've actually given me the best one of the lot: 8:30 till 1:30, 5.5 pence.
What's the rate off when you're on peak or not on the go period?
At the moment, it's still 14.2 pence, which is bargain.
See, this is what's stopping me from switching from Agile, because I look at it, I go, 14.2 pence is good for a normal tariff, but normally even on Agile at the moment, most of the day I'm paying sort of like 11 or 12 pence.
Yeah.
But I'm not getting 5 pence off peak now. I'm still, I'm paying sort of 9, 10p off peak. So it's how much, and with me working from home and having 2 kids that are being homeschooled and everything else, I use quite a lot of power during the day. So I'm thinking that probably at the moment Agile is probably as good as any, but there are certainly some selection of tariffs out there. Octopus is good because it's renewable energy on the Go tariff and the Go Faster and on the Agile. Is it renewable across the board? Does anyone remember?
I thought Octopus were.
Yeah.
I think it's, yeah. And you don't have to have your gas through Octopus. If you want, you can just get your electric through Octopus and get your gas from elsewhere if it's cheaper. We've got both going through them because I can't be asked with the change. But
okay.
Yeah, I've just looked at my last 30 days, and my average is 14.92p, and I'm on Agile. So it looks like I might be worth switching across to Go Go Faster for myself.
Yeah, it's fair.
I suppose everybody's got to look at their own usage, haven't they?
Exactly. But the other thing is I'm going to be moving very soon, and so it's sort of, do I change and then move?
Yeah, you might as well wait until you move, I suppose, won't it? Mike, when are you moving, by the way?
Hopefully this month. We're very close to exchange, so hopefully.
Good luck for that then.
Well, your electricity will be more expensive then, Mike, because it costs more to push it up the country.
Yeah.
We talked before we started the podcast about because I mentioned last week that it'd be nice to have a little bit more diversity in the panel, and I've got one chap. Hopefully, he'll be joining us when he's got some more experience in his car. He's new to it. And somebody suggested looking at the stats for the podcast to see how many women watch. Well, unfortunately, it is 100% men who watch this podcast. So it's no good me saying if there are any women watching, please, and you would like to join us to talk about how fantastic the ZS EV or maybe even the 5. The MG5 is, then please get in touch because we would love to have you on the podcast. There's no point in
having said that, Stuart. Having said that, if there are any men watching who have partners, wives, girlfriends, mums, daughters who would like to be press ganged into joining our motley crew, then we don't need volunteers. They can be volunteered. By all means, just put the iPad in front of them on a Monday evening and log them on, and we can do it that way. So they can have it so that it's completely press ganged into it.
Yeah, because
how about your wife, Miles? And she's quite experienced.
She's got electric cars. She drives the MG frequently. But
she had the I-Pace before that.
She had the I-Pace before that, yeah, and she had an Ionic before that, and yeah. In fact, actually, we were going to get an MG5, but I've actually decided I think I'm going to get an MG ZS next. So she prefers the more upright driving position of the Z. Because I've had an MG5 obviously now for a few weeks. She's driven that a few times, and she says actually she prefers the MG ZS seating position a bit higher. I think because she's come from the I-Pace, she's more used to that more upright sort of thing, and she doesn't need particularly the autonomy of 200 miles or whatever. The ZS is perfectly adequate for her needs, so I'm probably going to get her a ZS, I think.
I don't know whether you'll be able to persuade her, Miles, but anybody who can persuade any woman to come on the show, just to give their perspective, and also to perhaps show other women who might accidentally or on purpose come across his podcast, see that it's not all about blokes.
No, I mean, in the interest of diversity, I have got a half-hearted beard going on, just so they're not all clean-shaven.
Yeah. Now, is how long is that going to get, Miles?
My wife just shaved it off already, so. Sorry,
It's
Dave?
just homeschooling stress that has affected you.
Yeah, my wife's already at me saying, "What? Can you have a bloody shave, please, Miles?" Like, you got to go through the first month of it being terrible to the point where it gets bearable again. But every time I try and grow a beard, it gets to about 2 weeks in, and I just go, "It's just too much. I've got to scratch it off. I've got to shave it all off." So at the moment, it's about a week and a half. So it's not long before it gets chopped, probably.
And on that bombshell, if
So
you
just one thing to add, just to show we do listen. I did what I said I would do last week. I've gone through all the Santa list comments and compotted it down. There were 48 comments to get all the duplications, etc. I'm going to send it on. Miles has kindly said if I send it on to him, he will see if he can put it to the appropriate channels in MG. And Miles, we're not putting any pressure on you. We're not expecting all 48 to be carried out in the next week or so. But certainly, if we can have a voice and if it helps MG for future cars, whatever, that'd be great.
No, definitely. I'll send the feedback on, and I know that obviously, if it's some things on the list I've seen aren't, they're physical things that would need to be changed on the vehicle, like adding height adjustable seat belts and things like that, in the car. Obviously, that's not something we can affect now on this model, but going forward, it's something that can be perhaps looked at for future releases. Obviously, we know that MG has got some cars in the pipeline over the course of the next 12 to 18 months. And it would be good if some of those things were fixed or were taken heed of prior to their launch.
There was 150 items, but I took off Mike Proctor's. That brought it down to 48.
Thank you.
Okay. Folks, if you haven't already left feedback for your MG dealer, please find them on the MG dealer map. Go to the discussion thread and then post a reply. If your dealer's missing from the map, please contact me, Stuart Wright, via a private conversation on the forum to let me know so that I can add them. And that's going to be it for the MG EVs podcast this week. If you'd like to comment on what you've heard today, please reply in the discussion thread linked in the video description. If you'd like to suggest topics for discussions in our next podcast, please visit mgevs.com and post in the podcast forum. There's a new thread there for next week's podcast. And so I guess it just leaves me to thank everybody. So thank you very much, Mike Proctor and Michael Fisher and Miles Roberts.
Thank you.
And David Stewart.
Stay safe, everyone.
Yep. We'll be back on the 18th of January at the usual time, 7:30, with internet that works next time, I hope. I'll
put some coins in the meter.
I'll definitely do that. Yeah. And we look forward to seeing you then. So have a good week, folks. Bye-bye.